Could Donald Trump actually be kicked off the ballot? Or are resistance Democrats just making him more powerful?
The first one you said!
Probably not.
No.
This is Not My Party. Brought to you by the Bulwark. In the past month, 2 states have moved to axe Donald Trump from the ballot.
Bold! I like it.
They are arguing that his candidacy violates the constitutional prohibition against candidates who have engaged in insurrection.
He did that, yeah.
The first was my home state of Colorado, thanks to a tight 4-3 ruling by the state's Supreme Court. And over the holidays, the Secretary of State in Maine followed suit.
It's a Christmas miracle.
These actions raise 3 obvious questions that I want to answer for you. 1. Are the legal arguments banning Trump legit? 2. Might Trump actually get kicked off the ballot? And 3. What are all the political implications of this? Let's start with 1. The argument Trump is disqualified is premised on Section 3 of the 14th Amendment of the Constitution. This was written after the Civil War, in part to prevent Confederate leaders from taking office.
Losers!
Legit liberal and conservative legal scholars like Larry Tribe and Michael Luttig have argued that Trump is disqualified. They say this is no different than a foreign national or someone under 35 trying to run. One argument from legal scholars that I find compelling is this counterfactual. If Jefferson Davis ran for president after the Civil War, it would have been clear to leaders at the time that this amendment prohibited it.
That's very illegal.
That said, this article is written in a rather convoluted manner. Here it is if you want to screenshot and read for yourself. It never says the word president, for example. And Professor Kurt Lash recently wrote in the New York Times that it's not at all clear that presidents were included, because back then they were focused on state leaders. Others say that it's not crystal clear that Trump has committed insurrection, since he hasn't been convicted by the courts. Now, I find that argument dumb, but it does add to the complexity of the case.
Sound like some bullshit to me.
So, is there a legit constitutional argument for taking him off the ballot? Yeah, but it's also complicated and opaque, which makes that argument much harder.
This is too complicated for me.
Now let's go to number 2. I don't see much reason to hope Trump will get the boot. The Colorado case is about to go to the Supreme Court, where there's a 6-3 Republican majority. Now, some of the Republican appointees on SCOTUS, like John Roberts and Brett Kavanaugh, have demonstrated a willingness to buck partisan trends in the past. But it's hard to see this court disqualifying Trump on a case that's not clear-cut. Meanwhile, over in the GOP primary, Trump is still crushing the field. So barring some unforeseen miracle, I think Trump is gonna be on the ballot this November.
That's disappointing.
And finally, let's have a look at number 3. A lot of pundits have argued that these cases help Trump because they feed the narrative that the deep state is out to get him.
This trial is a total witch hunt.
I find that kind of stupid. Sure, with the Republican primary voters, Trump has clearly benefited from all of the legal cases against him. But general election swing voters are a different ball of wax. And they're not going to be swayed by the poor little Donnie persecution narrative that has worked in the primary.
I too am a victim.
So I'm skeptical that in the end, he ends up benefiting from being borderline constitutionally ineligible to run. I think it's more likely that cases like this hurt him, with people who have tuned themselves out of the Trump drama and spent the last few years focused more on kitchen table issues like inflation. This year, they're about to be rudely reminded what they hate about this guy, with myriad court cases giving them an acid flashback to the bad old days.
I can't wait.
Iowa caucuses are just 2 weeks away. The voting is almost here. We'll see you next week for more Not My Party, and tell your pals to subscribe.